In March 2024, Humberside police received a call described in their records as a concern for care of the deceased. That is what they wrote down. Concern for care. What they found when they walked into Legacy Independent Funeral Directors on Hessel Road in Hull was 35 human bodies in varying states of decomposition, half a ton of human ashes, more than 1,000 personal items, love letters, baby clothes, treasured possessions just left there, scattered. A crisis response team brought in to help described it as looking like a hoarder's house. That crisis team is normally deployed after plane crashes, natural disasters, terror attacks. This time, they were in a funeral home in the north of England, and the man responsible had been running that business for 12 years. Robert Bush was 48 years old, the owner of Legacy Independent Funeral Directors. He had operated the business since at least 2012. In that time, he built what appeared to be a functioning funeral service on Hessel Road in Hull. Families trusted him with some of the most painful moments of their lives. Let's be specific about what he did with that trust, because the full picture matters. 31 families believed their loved one had been cremated. They had been told the cremation took place. Most of them had been given ashes. Those ashes did not belong to their relatives. Bush had handed people the wrong remains with a smile on his face. Some families had those ashes turned into jewelry, worn close to their skin. One person had a stranger's ashes tattooed into their body with ink. They found out later. 4 of his charges specifically related to giving women ashes he falsely claimed were the remains of their unborn babies. One of those women was Jasmine Beverly. Her son Sonny was stillborn in May 2022. They held a funeral. They were given ashes. 2 years later, they discovered the ashes were not his, and police found Sonny's body still at the funeral home. Jasmine was pregnant with her 5th child when she got that call. She said it ruined the final months of her pregnancy, that she had suffered from depression, that at times she had suicidal thoughts. Sonny was the only stillborn baby found on the premises. There were 254 victims in total. And beyond the bodies and the ashes, Bush had been selling fraudulent funeral plans to 226 people, totaling over £500,000. He stole from charity collections, donations passed to him by grieving families for the Salvation Army, for Macmillan Cancer Support. He pocketed money from 12 charities, including money given in memory of the very people whose remains he was holding. Here is what makes this harder to absorb. There were warning signs, multiple, and they were noticed. Tristan Essex, whose grandmother Jessie Stockdale was one of the 35 bodies found at Legacy, said that with hindsight, there had been warning signs. There was an awful smell in the funeral directors, he recalled. My grandma was changed into different coffins every time we viewed her. We had obviously picked a specific coffin. Different coffins, every visit. He noticed. He just didn't know what it meant yet. 35 bodies were found inside Legacy, and one of them had an ankle bracelet with my Nana's name on, he said. The smell, the coffin switches, the ankle bracelet. These details were there. People saw them, registered them, and had no idea what they were looking at. That's not a failure of the families. That's what it looks like when an industry operates with nobody watching. When whistleblowers raised the alarm about the condition of bodies at Legacy's main branch, Bush was on holiday overseas with his daughter. He was arrested at London Heathrow Airport on his return from America on Sunday, the 10th of March, 2024, and taken into custody at the gate. What investigators found during the months that followed became what Humberside police would call the biggest and most complex investigation in their history. Nearly 3,000 exhibits seized, over 800 witness statements taken. More than 300 victims affected. The investigation took 16 months. It cost enormous resources. And at the end of it, they had a case against one man. Here is the question that case doesn't answer. How did he do this for 12 years? Outside of Scotland, there is nothing compelling funeral directors in England, Wales, or Northern Ireland to abide by any national standards. No mandatory qualifications, no required inspections, no license you have to hold to legally open a funeral business tomorrow. Robert Bush was a member of neither major trade body, neither the National Association of Funeral Directors, nor the Society of Allied and Independent Funeral Directors. Both have codes of practice. Both require standards of their members, but membership is voluntary. Nobody checked whether Bush was in compliance with anything because there was nothing he was legally required to comply with. The David Fuller Inquiry, commissioned partly in response to what happened in Hull, concluded that the funeral sector in England was, in effect, an unregulated free-for-all. Hampshire's Police and Crime Commissioner, responding to a separate funeral horror case in Gosport the same year, said investigators discovered a judicial black hole. They had to rely on common law charges because there is no legislation designed to prosecute the crimes they encountered. Bush's offenses ran from 2012 to 2024. 12 years. And nothing in England's legal framework was built to detect it, intervene, or stop it. Scotland introduced a statutory licensing scheme for funeral directors on the 1st of March, 2025. A license for every home. Mandatory inspections. No exceptions. England has not done the same. As of this recording, the government has accepted the recommendations of the Fuller Inquiry and says work is ongoing. There is no legislation, no regulator, no timeline. Bush pleaded guilty on the 2nd of April 2026 to a total of 67 charges: prevention of a lawful and decent burial, fraud, fraudulent trading, and theft. On the 31st of July 2026, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Sentencing him, the judge, Mr. Justice Hilliard K.C., said, "I do not think I have ever known offenses affect so many people and so many people so deeply." The court heard he had breached the trust of bereaved families on an almost industrial scale. Bush showed no reaction as the sentence was handed down. Louise Petro, who had been given the wrong ashes after losing her mother-in-law, said the 20 years was not enough. What he did to those people, he should get life. Rhea Burton, whose grandfather's ashes were made into jewelry, said, "He abandoned and hid our loved one for months and handed us a stranger's ashes with a smile on his face." Robert Bush is in prison. That part is resolved. But here is what 20 years doesn't fix. Humberside police confirmed early in the investigation that it is impossible to identify human ashes using DNA profiles. They described it at the time as devastating news for families. And it is. Because it means that every family who received wrong ashes from Bush will never be able to know for certain what they actually have. Some of them had those ashes made into jewelry. Some wore them against their skin for months, sometimes years, believing they were carrying someone they loved. One person had them tattooed permanently into their body. The law can sentence the man who did that, but it cannot undo the damage. And while England works out what to do about the industry that produced him, ITV News reported this week that 562 funeral directors across England appear to operate outside any trade body or voluntary code whatsoever, not accused of anything, just unaccountable. The same way Robert Bush was for 12 years until someone finally made a phone call. the next one is already operating somewhere, and there is still no one whose job it is to find them. This is Funeral Report. If you want to stay informed on how the death care industry actually operates, subscribe. This channel exists so what happened to these families doesn't happen to yours.